Top of this, our big breaking news coming in as far as the film Satluj is concerned. Government sources now clarifying that the film, Diljit's film, earlier titled Punjab 95, was submitted to the Central Board of Film Certification several years ago, approximately 3 years ago. There were cuts that were recommended, 127 cuts were recommended in the film. The filmmakers had then challenged the censor board's recommendations in the Bombay High Court, but of course they later withdrew the case before the court could deliver its judgment. Sources within the government now saying that the film was subsequently released on an OTT platform, which is Z5, without the recommended cuts, prompting the government to write to the OTT platform, though they are not directly regulated by the government in the same manner as theatrical releases. Sources also clarifying that no special committee has been constituted in connection with the matter. Let me go straight across to Pragya, who is joining us on the broadcast. So Pragya, first things first. The government is admitting that it is the one that stepped in to block Satluj. Is that correct?
The sources are saying that the government has actually approached intermediary to check on the content, because under IT Act, center can intervene if they believe that the content threatens national security or the sovereignty of the country. And this is exactly what has happened. And in fact, the government has approached intermediary is what our government, is our sources telling us right now.
May I ask you this? Does the government or the censor board plan to make this official? Because so far, Pragya, we've heard via sources. We are not officially hearing from the censor board. We are not officially hearing from the government. Yesterday, there were sources within the government who said the film poses a national security challenge because it somehow glorifies the K movement and Khalistanis, which is why we don't want it to release before an election. The censor board right now not saying anything about the 127 cuts it recommended. The government officially not saying anything. Is that bound to happen given the criticism that is coming the government and the censor board's way?
Well, Shreya, the government has invoked 69A under IT Act, and under IT Act, center can intervene. The MeitY has also, alerted the intermediary, which is Z5 in this case. So it is a part of a process when there is a committee that will be constituted to look into the contents of Satluj. That obviously would mean that government will certify the content, whether it is for OTT or for a feature film. As far as feature films are concerned, you have CBFC as a certification agency. But as far as OTT is concerned, there is no regulation, direct regulation by the center. But yes, according to IT Act, if government believes that something is threatening the sovereignty of the country or the national security, it can intervene, and it can also direct or send a message to the intermediary to look into the content and take action. And this is exactly what has happened in this case. And in fact, this is a broader debate, Shreya, where the government says that OTT is a self-regulatory platform, government does not intervene, but there is a clause also that it does not intervene when it does not, it does not matter whether this content is about the national security. But if it is, then government certainly do have IT Act to intervene in the contents as well. So that kind of, the right that government has kept for itself as far as IT Act is concerned, the MeitY ministry is concerned. But you are right that government directly has no control over any sort of regulatory control over OTT platforms, and that is the larger debate that has been happening in the government. And the government, despite the parliamentary, standing committee findings and also suggestions that there should be some censorship as far as the content is concerned, the government says that it is not looking into regulating the content on OTT.
Okay. Pragya, we'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much for joining us on our top story. Government sources now clarifying that it is indeed them that invoked Section 69A of the IT Act to ask Z5 to pull down the film. So that is the sequence that has happened. In their defense, they are saying the censor board 3 years ago had told the film that make these 127 cuts and we'll let you release the film. They decided not to do that. Instead, they went and released the film on OTT, which is why the government had to intervene. Of course, there is a massive debate that is underway both online and offline. It's a debate we continue to track and have here on Times Now. But for the moment, moving on to the other big debate on social media. Social media has been buzzing with claims that India will roll out E25 fuel, ethanol 25, in a phased manner by 2029. But the government has now stepped in to dismiss those reports as completely false. Is this backtracking after backlash? That is what we are going to talk about. But for the moment, sources are telling Times Now that E25 is still undergoing compatibility tests across multiple vehicles, models, and no policy decision has been taken so far. The government maintains that any future move to a higher ethanol blend will be based entirely on scientific testing, technical validation, and vehicle safety. Now, amidst this E25 debate, the government is also defending its existing ethanol program. Sources within the government telling Times Now that E20, which we use across the country right now, has been used across India for over 2 years through a phased rollout. More than 20 crore two-wheelers and 20 lakh four-wheelers are already running on ethanol-blended petrol, E20. That is the government's account. The government maintains that the transition has been gradual and scientifically tested, and that is how E25 will be introduced in the market as well. Which means, Pragya, the government, cognizant of the debate that is currently underway as far as ethanol-blended fuel is concerned, and there have been concerns about low mileage, there have been concerns about certain parts not working very well after E20 was introduced to their vehicles, etc. So the government aware of the criticism coming in as well.
Absolutely, Shreya, and government is saying that no ethanol blending will be okayed without scientific testing or the regulatory approvals or the technical validation. In fact, there are testing right now being done on what is the impact on the engine and also the capacity of the engine, whether it is, as the claims on social media suggesting, whether it is impacting the speed and mileage. The government has said that E20 has been a very smooth transition, and there is no such, proof that says that the mileage or the engine is impacted by the ethanol blending. Having said that, government is also claiming that there is an international conspiracy against ethanol blending program. Remember, India is the fastest growing crude oil market right now, and in fact, it is also trying to be self-dependent as far as the energy mode and oil is concerned by having these alternate mode of fuels, by having ethanol blending. So we will be lesser dependent on other lobbies as well. The government is also saying that these battery lobbies, foreign battery lobbies, and also international crude exporters are going to be very rattled by this experiment, and this is exactly why we are hearing and seeing a lot of social media posts about the adverse effect of ethanol blending with the petrol. So government is cautioning everyone right now that E20, it has been tested, E25 is under the testing, it has not been scheduled, but as far as E25 is concerned, it has to pass scientific testing before it is being used in cars. In a way, government is saying, please don't go by whatever is said on social media. It may not be right, and it may not. It is highly that it is likely to be an international conspiracy against our energy program.
Okay, Pragya, we'll leave it there. This, of course, goes beyond social media. There are opinions on both sides. Politics has erupted as well. Let's listen in.
Ethanol-blended petrol is in the interest of the Indian middle class. It is in the interest of the Indian farmers. It is in the interest of India's strategic autonomy. It will reduce India's import bill by 1,90,000 crore. In the last 3 years, every year, more than 20 crore two-wheelers and more than 20 lakh four-wheelers are already running on ethanol-blended petrol. The truth of the matter is that ethanol-blended petrol has increased the per ton price that the maize farmer gets from 1,200 rupees to 2,400 rupees. Do not get into the fake news of the Congress ecosystem and some individuals. The only truth on ethanol-blended petrol is it's in the interest of Indian middle class, it's in the interest of environment, it's in the interest of reducing India's farm import bill, and it is in the interest of Indian farmers.
Ladies and gentlemen, E20 is at the center of a growing debate. The government has called it a game changer for India's energy security. Critics, of course, question its impact on mileage, older vehicles, and engine performance. So what exactly is E20? Who benefits from it? My guests this afternoon, Manav, thank you very much for coming to us in the studio. Manav is the editor of Times Drive. Thanks, Manav. Tutu Dhawan is a legend in the world of auto. He's joining us on the broadcast as well. Manav, I'm just going to come to you first. You've just heard what Pragya has said. Pragya is saying that the government believes this is somehow an international conspiracy against India increasing its ethanol blending. We are at E20 right now, right? Which means 80% petrol and 20% ethanol. We want to go up to 25, which means 25% ethanol and 75% petrol, right, Manav?
Yes. Yes, that's
do you
correct.
see this? Do you see this as an international conspiracy? Because there is a view on social media with many people writing in and saying कि भाई mileage कम हो गई है हम लोगों की गाड़ी की, that हमारी गाड़ी में problems आ गई हैं. There are parts that are not functioning very well.
Yes, you're right. I think the international conspiracy angle stems from the fact that we are pretty much following a model of fuel diversification, which is pretty similar to what we are seeing in Brazil right now, where we see E27 being the norm. But I think the difference has been in terms of implementation. So if you look at the ecosystem that's in play in Brazil right now, there is a live fuel pricing that follows every day for the consumer, and basis the cost that the fuel has with that particular blend of fuel on that particular day, they are free to choose what they want to put in their cars. What has happened is that we've taken inspiration from them, and we've had a very fast rollout of the E20 mandate in the country, because of which there's a lot of panic, and social media, as always, creates a lot of panic in the minds of people. So this is what's happening on the global front. But again, social media is something that people consume every day. And over there, when we have concerns being shared, that tends to get spread around much faster. So the concerns coming from the fact that E20 supporting vehicles are from April 2023 onwards, and the government says that E20 will be just fine in older vehicles as well. Whereas people who are using this fuel every day are noting that there has been a drop in the fuel economy. So what has happened is there's a little bit of panic. There's a clear direction where this can go to, and there's a realistic situation today, and a lot of this is going on simultaneously.
Tutu Dhawan, of course, no one can deny the fact that India needs to diversify its fuel purchases. Also, we have to lessen our dependence on other people for our fuel. So, if you increase the volume of ethanol in your petrol, it means you import that much lesser petrol from other places, right? So, you save money, you reduce dependence. I understand that logic. But is the government factually correct in saying that E20 actually doesn't impact any of our vehicles, it doesn't impact fuel economy, and therefore E25 will not do it either?
See, first of all, I think the world is jealous of the fact that we are becoming self-reliant. And this is one way of going forward, not going backwards. Plus, let me also assure you that when you are doing some tests, it is not an overnight result that you can get. Now, when the public is making hue and cry about damage to the engine and all sorts of things, nobody has been able to identify any damage to the engine or otherwise in the last 3 months that the fuel has been rolled out. Moreover, all tests and results will take obviously some time, maybe a year or 2 or 3. By the time you are able to identify, if any, there is a problem in the engine.
Okay. So, Manav, then therefore the question, I think the word coming in from the government is that, look, we'll of course get E25, but we'll phase it out. Jitni jaldi E20 ka implementation hua, we will not rush with E25. Now, of course, automakers, I believe they've done a press conference yesterday, and they've said that E25 is going to be absolutely safe for your vehicles. So 2 questions there, Manav. A, will automakers need to make changes in the manufacturing stage to be compliant to E25? And is it true or not true that E20 right now may not be exactly what the government is saying, completely safe for your vehicle?
Okay, so I'll address the second one first. What happens is that we have a large variety of cars and the conditions of vehicles available in the market. And it's very difficult to make sure that all of them have a standardized level of operation, because of which there is a lot of variance. What the people are sharing on social media obviously raises concern. So I wouldn't give it a clean sheet that it has no impact whatsoever. Cars are going to service centers more often than before. And this is something that's happening, although it is something that's completely manageable with due maintenance of your vehicle. But coming to the first part, what do manufacturers need to do if the ethanol blend increases? What happens is the ethanol portion of the fuel may have some long-term impact on some components of your vehicles, like fuel injectors and fuel lines, for example, which need to be made of a harder material so that the corrosion doesn't happen as quickly as it may happen in an E0 vehicle, for example. So some changes have to be made. When I was speaking to some of the automakers, they said that if we are trying to convert a vehicle to a flex fuel model, wherein we put in an ethanol sensor in the car, which recognizes the amount of ethanol being put into the vehicle and simultaneously adapts to what fuel, to how to combust it in an efficient manner. That conversion is going to be somewhere around the cost of what it would take to adapt a petrol car to a CNG model. But that's again in the long run. And that has to be done in a phased manner as well. Because what happens is we need to realize when a car is being made, tested, verified to run in different conditions, a lot of continuous checks and balances have to be verified from the manufacturer's end before it rolls out to the public. So while they would be saying that today E20 and E25 is okay, what happens after E27 is that the natural jump is to E85, and that is where the flex fuel model comes in. Maruti Suzuki came out with the flex fuel compliant vehicle. Hero MotoCorp has done too. And if you'll notice, they are E85 and beyond compliant.
No, Manav, can I just interrupt you here? This is very interesting. Right now, the maximum that any country is using is E28, correct me if I'm wrong, or is it E27?
It's E27 is what's widely accepted as the higher
So from
number.
E27, we will straight away go to E85.
Yes, because what happens is...
But that will require a completely different kind of vehicle, a vehicle that is designed and made completely differently, right? We don't have that right now.
No, we don't, because that is what we call a flex fuel vehicle, meaning it should be able to run on two kinds of fuel. Either it's E100, 100% ethanol, or E85, wherein the majority of the fuel composition is ethanol, or it should be E100. So anything from E0 to E100 should be something that the vehicle is able to adapt to. Okay. Those are called flex fuel vehicle, and they require a different kind of engineering altogether. And they, of course, come with their own cost as well in manufacturing, and that cost somewhere or the other will have to be borne by the customer. So that is the large progressive step that has to be taken eventually. But I think by the time we go from E20 and in a phased manner to E25 and E27, perhaps, the change in manufacturing will not be that big.
Mr. Dhawan, can I then ask you, the government certainly believes that right now the noise around E25 is motivated. It is agenda driven. They're not saying it openly, but the implication is that there is a lobby, and this is the EV lobby, right? That is trying to puncture the cause of E25 because there are battery manufacturers. Most of our batteries, EV batteries, come from China, and they won't want E25 in your vehicles because that will be cheaper, etc. Is that something you believe, that the controversy we are seeing and hearing around E25 is concocted, agenda-driven, essentially propaganda?
Yes, indeed. All these things are finally coming out in the open as to what is the country facing as against E20 to start with. Eventually, yes, there will be a lot of parties which would be upset with the fact that E20 and then E27 and finally E85 will come into use in India, and by which their own business will get affected. If you get E27 and E85 at a cheaper rate than petrol, then I'm sure the focus will remain on the internal combustion engine and less people will be diverted to EVs. EV in any case is not for a hardcore driver and a hardcore petrol head who is using petrol and internal combustion engine in their vehicles.
Okay.
So this was a necessity that they are shifting over to EVs. Primarily two-wheelers, when you are talking of policies that by 2028 and 2030, there will be no vehicles registered other than EVs in metros like Delhi and so on. So the mindset is changing, and obviously with the mindset changing, there will be a lot of political issues that will keep coming up.
Okay, we'll leave it there for the moment. I think it was important for us to understand why there is a resistance to E25 and why the government wants E25 in this country. It's important, of course, there are arguments on both sides. I'm glad we could hear all of them. Manav, thank you very much. Mr. Dhawan, thank you very much for coming to Afternoon Dispatch and explaining to our viewers what E25 is and what it means to your vehicle. We'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much. News and updates continue right here. Do stay with us.